Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The City Manager's Office has expressed Mayor Pro Tem Soto's request to participate in today's meeting remotely. Madam Clerk, can you please provide the council with the necessary information?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Soto is requesting approval from the council to participate remotely in today's open and closed session. Per AB 2449, Mayor Pro Tem Soto is requesting remote participation via emergency circumstances due to a physical or family medical emergency that prevents her from attending in person. If council approves this request, Mayor Pro Tem Soto must participate by video and must disclose those 18 years or older that are present in the room with her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Do you need a roll call or just the
A voice vote is okay.
voice? Okay. I also. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the City Council meeting of February 20th, 2024. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez is currently absent. Councilmember Escobedo.
Here.
Councilmember Cordero.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Soto is currently absent. Mayor Patino.
Here.
Mayor, if I may have 1 second,
Yes,
please.
Mr. Posada.
Councilmember Soto indicates she's in the waiting room. I'm not sure if she has the Zoom for the closed session and not this session.
And Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez is now here.
My thumb doesn't type as good as it should.
Council, apologies for the wait on that. I will have to resend her the invite. It appears that she is using a different link, so I'll make sure to send that to her right now.
Perfect, thank you.
How many do we have? There she is. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Is there? Okay. Good evening, Ms. Soto. First item on the agenda is the public comment period. This time is reserved to accept comments from the public on matters not on the printed agenda. This evening, unless otherwise permitted, speakers will have 2 minutes to comment. Madam Clerk, do you have any requests to speak? And we have 9 of them. Thank you.
Yes, we currently have 9 requests to speak.
9? Okay, got it. Okay. John Mata, followed by Leonardo De Casco, Nicole Bryant, and Scott Wanell. Oh, before you start, I want to say congratulations to all of you on your new truck. That's amazing. I guess my question is, did we actually really, I know I wasn't a great pusher, but did it actually people push that in, or was it the combustion engine? Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. My name is John Mata, and I'm a proud member of Local 2020. For the past 22 months, I have served this amazing community and its citizens as a fire inspector. I have been working as a fire inspector in the county for the past 8 years. I came to this amazing city to help educate the public about fire life and safety, and to help with reviewing all the plans, commercials, residential occupancies, including tenant improvements. I've investigated over 30 fires, 5 arson arrests, and convictions. For the past 22 months, I've seen the city grow at a tremendous rate, approximately 3.3% a month. We're adding residential addresses daily. This city is busting at its seams. It's awesome for everyone else except for us firefighters and fire inspectors. It is difficult to reduce and retain staff when our neighboring agencies are offering 20% more to drive an additional 45 minutes north or south. In this calendar year, the county will introduce borderless dispatching. What that means is that our fire stations and the borders wise will respond to more calls and work it in Betteravia East, putting more strain on our stations and firefighters as we call volume keeps increasing. We're at a point to where we have to grow. Here's how you guys can help. Let's start working together. Take our faces off and just look at the numbers. It's a glaring fact that we are underpaid. It's a glaring fact that every council member wants to do right by the community. It's a glaring fact that all of us who are still working at your fire stations love this community. It is a glaring fact that council members have stated that you support public safety. It is a glaring fact that our hiring pool of firefighters and inspectors has diminished because of our low wage. Finally, council, this is an opportunity to erase years of trauma Santa Maria City Fire Department has endured. The council has an opportunity to change the direction of this department for the better. We deserve great, you deserve great, all of our families deserve great. We feel that this negotiation is pivotal for our growth. Our city is growing, and we are far behind in handling calls and service. I'm grateful to be here speaking. Please give us your best, and let's get back to the table with fair negotiations that will position us for a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Leonardo De Casa, followed by Nicole Bryant, followed by Scott Wanell.
Hello, City Council members and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Leo De Casals, and I work for the Central Coast Labor Council, AFL-CIO, representing over 70 labor unions across the Central Coast. I am also a resident and voter here in Santa Maria, and I want to make it clear that I stand with these workers for a fair contract. Time and time again, you, the City Council, and city staff have claimed you support and love our first responders. But when it comes down to it, the city has failed so far to deliver an equitable contract to the hardworking firefighters of Santa Maria. It is not too late to do the right thing, come back to the table, and bargain in good faith when Santa Maria Firefighters Local 2020. This means a dedication to public safety. It means a willingness to support the essential services that we need, and it means a determination to uphold the oath you took to serve this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole Bryant, followed by Scott Wanell and Christopher Furtado.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and City
Good
Council
afternoon.
members. My name is Nicole Bryant, and I'm the field representative for SEIU Local 620, who represents the general unit employees here at the City of Santa Maria. I'm speaking to you this afternoon in support of our brothers and sisters in labor in the Santa Maria Firefighters Local 2020. While we are happy and grateful to have reached an agreement with the city on SEIU's contract to support our members' basic needs, we continue to stand in solidarity with your firefighters for their needs to make an equitable living wage. Our community deserves experienced first responders who are dedicated to this community and eagerly answer the call each and every day. The City of Santa Maria needs to meet market value to keep the talented and dedicated staff here in our community, serving our citizens, our coworkers, and our families. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Wannell, followed by Christopher Furtado, followed by Jeremy Mace.
Mayor, City Council, it's a pleasure to be here today to talk on behalf of the firefighters. Scott Wannell, school teacher, Santa Maria. I come here as a private citizen, not as a representative of teachers union or anybody else, just myself. And I didn't even understand this, what was going on until it was made aware by one of the local firefighters. And I finally did some research on it, and I find it very hard to believe that we can look at the numbers of pay versus equity and not want to come to the table and provide a more fair contract for cost of living. Just looking at the population difference between Santa Barbara and Santa Maria, there's almost 20,000 more residents, and that's just what's on the books and not probably what's really accounted for. But yet, firefighters in Santa Barbara City are paid on average $91,000 a year, where here we're looking at about $56,000 on average. And that's just absolutely mind-blowing when they're the second largest calls, but yet the second lowest pay. So I just want the city council to not just look at those numbers as a line item, but look at the faces of the people that are actually having to do this work, having to live in our community, have pride in the community, and say, hey, these are the people doing the job that we need. As a school teacher who sees the fire department roll in every time we have an emergency call, be it some medical situation or even the problems now with fentanyl, where these guys got to come in unknown and just get the job done, I think we definitely need to look at a little bit of equity in getting these guys paid up for the job that they're doing. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Christopher Furtado, followed by Jeremy Mace. Christopher Furtado, followed by Jeremy Mace, followed by Matt Chirkop.
Members of the City Council, if you're not aware, if you haven't met me yet, I'm a loyal and dedicated member of this department and this community. I've worked for your city for over 10 years, and I'm now a fire captain. I bring to you over 17 years of firefighting experience through municipal and wildland fire departments. Despite my dream of serving in Santa Maria my entire career, my experience working for the city, along with ongoing negotiations, unfortunately have led me, like many others, to currently seek other employment. I am currently looking for other employment due to these items. Unfortunately, this is not new. My introduction to the city in 2013 was being hired here and all of a sudden realizing that due to being a single dad with 2 children, I qualified for government assistance based on my pay in the academy. As the second busiest yet second lowest paid fire department in Santa Barbara County, our situation is unsustainable. Open vacancies persist due to inexperienced personnel who are not ready to promote, not due to willingness, but pure experience. This is a dangerous job, and that is shown countless times if you watch the news. This causes us to work more shifts than desired and compensate for the shortage and make up for the lack of pay that other agencies in Santa Barbara County are receiving. This exodus strains our budget, depletes your resources and transfers valuable knowledge and expertise that these citizens of Santa Maria deserve, not a stepping stone department to other agencies. Moreover, it is extremely disheartening to note that we are paid 22% less than our counterparts in the police department. The police department, which is also, by the way, severely understaffed, is treated like the busiest department, at least with their pay. It is very terrifying for me as a captain who at times are in charge of every unit in this city to ask for a police officer and to get a response. We currently don't have any available. Please be aware of how often that also happens to your fire department. To reach the median average on our salary survey, a modest 14% increase is required. Currently, we stand here once again with contract past expiration, highlighting the urgency for equitable negotiations. This significant pay gap between fire and police department exaggerates our challenges and underscores the need for prompt and fair resolution by you, the council. Since 2013, the year I was hired, every single labor negotiations that has taken place since I have been here has gone past due. Imagine how that makes an employee feel. Thank you.
Jeremy Mace, followed by Matt Cherkoff.
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members and city staff. I am a proud fire captain and first vice president of Local 2020. My name is Jeremy Mace, and again, I stand before you with a sense of urgency to address you and seek guidance for our last, best, and final offer, emailed to you on December 15th, 67 days ago. Our proposal, a 10% in year 1, 8% in year 2, and 6% in year 3, is aimed to address the pressing issue of fair compensation. Despite our current shortfall of over 14%, we have put forth a plan to resolve this disparity. Today, I ask you, as elected leaders, representatives of the citizens of Santa Maria, to vote on our proposal and to provide clear direction to Local 2020. Mayor Patino, in your State of the City address, you noted that the strength of the city can be gauged by its vital signs, with police and fire protection standing at the top responsibilities of government. Vital signs, markers of health and well-being, are familiar territory to me. Prior to my tenure in the fire service, I earned a bachelor's from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in biology. And since then, I've dedicated my career to life safety. I understand the significance of these indicators as they guide informed decisions regarding health and disease. Speaking of disease, our union, Local 2020, is grappling with a disease. And much like systemic disease, it escapes visual detection, but manifests through discernible signs. We've outlined our symptoms extensively: overwork, attrition, lack of inability to recruit, and glaring disparities in compensation when compared to our public safety counterparts, a staggering 22% rank for rank. And like most diseases, environmental factors worsen our condition. The economic climate has intensified our situation. Inflation outpaces salary compensation adjustments. CalPERS contributions paid for by the employee escalate, and healthcare costs consume an alarming 5% of our annual salary. We are undeniably losing ground. Tragically, diseases don't affect the individual only, they ripple through families, permeating every aspect of life. Our loved ones have grown accustomed to our absence. To put it bluntly, a Santa Maria firefighter has to work an extra month and a half to match the average earnings of our counterparts. This disparity not only erodes our well-being, but also erodes that of our families. Yet there is hope, and just as disease has a treatment plan, so too does our predicament of being underpaid by 14.5%. The diagnosis is clear, the treatment within reach. All that is needed is the commitment to ensure that our fire department, a top responsibility of the city and council, receives the necessary action. With proper treatment, the systemic issue we face, retention, recruitment, and the sense of being undervalued will subside, and our vital signs will once again reflect a healthy and thriving community.
Thank you. Matt Chirkop, followed by Charlie Martinez.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City staff, and the public. My name is Matthew Chirkop, and I'm president of the Santa Maria Firefighters Local 2020. I come before you again to share our frustrations with negotiations. We have now been out of contract for over 50 days, and it has been almost 150 days since we began negotiations. We presented a last, best, and final to you in early December, and we have not heard back. Our ask is simple. Come up with a plan that gets us to the average of market, which is exactly what we have proposed. I'm sure some of you are asking, how will we pay for that? Well, the answer is clear. Measure U. Over the last 3 years alone, Measure U revenue returned $10 million more than estimated. And I'll repeat that. Over the last 3 years, Measure U has returned over $10 million more than anyone could have guessed. When 74% of the voters voted for increasing Measure U from a quarter-cent sales tax to a 1-cent sales tax, that message should have been clear to you. The overwhelming support from the community for public safety is there. I should clarify that when the community supports public safety, that includes the fire department. We are too often left out of that conversation, which explains why we have fallen behind in pay, even when compared to our police department counterparts. Sure, we don't get the attention in the news when there's a homicide in town, and it's easy to think that's only a police issue, but it's not. The fact of the matter is, we respond as well and provide critical life-saving care. I have members that are unable to make it tonight and wanted to share their story. As you heard before, we have a firefighter living in his van. I have another firefighter who lives with his parents so that he can save as much money as possible to one day hopefully afford a home. Another member of mine and his wife and 2 kids, they live off $300 a week because they are swamped in medical debt and bills. And another member of mine is drowning in school loans and lives with his in-laws. These are just a few examples, but they are not the only examples. The economy is tough right now, and we're asking the city to help us keep up with inflation and keep up with the market so that more members do not choose to leave for other agencies. This will also help with recruiting individuals who will succeed and put in a long career here in Santa Maria. I know you've heard me talk about over the last 12 years, we have lost 40% of the employees that we have hired. Most have left for other jobs. Others just couldn't cut it here. This is a symptom of the problem, low pay. When we used to get over 1,000 applicants for 10 positions, we now receive less than 100. The conditions are ripe to literally fix the pay disparity overnight. In a subsequent presentation tonight, you will hear requests for budget amendments for additional staffing, which we desperately need. You will also see proposals and updates for large one-time purchases, many of which would be nice to have, but we do not need them. Oftentimes, it feels as if the city is choosing to buy the fancy toy instead of paying the credit card bill. Invest in your firefighters. We are always here for you when you need us. Now it's time to reciprocate. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie Martinez, followed by Jeff Lee.
Hello, can you hear me? How you doing? My name is Charlie Martinez. I'm the Vice President of 5th District of California Professional Firefighters, representing the federal firefighters across California, to include Vandenberg, Space Force Base, and the firefighters that work on there, many of whom live within the city of Santa Maria. I was here a couple weeks ago, and since then I've seen on-the-record interviews, even a campaign promise from elected officials sitting here tonight, that public safety is top priority. And I'm going to ask, how often do we hear every election or state of the whatever address to the people that public safety is top priority and that you've been doing a good job? And ma'am, I would say a 40% exodus is not doing a good job. 2 weeks ago, your interim manager had the guts to say he appreciates them.
Those words are meaningless and empty when you choose not to bargain a decent contract. Mayor, you asked a question publicly to our firefighters about their truck. I challenge you to answer the calls from your firefighters when it comes to what it takes to keep these dedicated, highly trained professionals here. Based on what I hear, I'm thinking you won't. Publicly, you said public safety is priority, and I remind you again, do not tell us what you value. Show us. 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry, I missed that part. Don't insult them and say you don't have the money. Measure U, $10 million should say enough about that question. It's obvious you don't just fully appreciate their value, and that's sad. Over 12,000 calls last year, 33 calls a day, every single day, for 14% below value. You know, it's easy for you guys to sit there and think, you know, whatever. You really don't fully appreciate what they do, what the skill set it takes to work here as a firefighter. I challenge you, grab a set of turnouts. Some of you can still wear some turnouts. Grab a set of turnouts, do a ride-along. Wake up all hours of the day, several calls a day, out in the rain and the wind like they were this past storms, every holiday. And I promise you, some of you are going to learn real fast that they're worth every dollar that you're trying to save. But you can change right now. Some of you guys have not been very communicative with the firefighters and to fully appreciate why they're asking what they're asking, which is not above and beyond. They're still asking for below, middle of the road. I challenge you to show your people that they're important enough to you and that their firefighters are appreciated by you, that you publicly have said is their top priority.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Jeff Lee.
My name is Jeff Lee. I'm the business representative for Teamsters Local 986. I'm here to speak on behalf of the 53 firefighters for the Santa Maria Firefighters Association. So these firefighters have been in contract negotiations for nearly 150 days. They've been without a contract for nearly 50 days. And in my business, you look at something like that and you wonder what's going to change. We know what the issue is. I'm not going to go over it over and over again. I've heard it repeatedly. One of the things referenced was Measure U. And I have the full text from Measure U here. I'm not going to read the whole thing because you should know what it says. You signed it. But I've highlighted a few parts. The parts that stick out, whereas every second counts in an emergency, and doctors say the brain starts to deteriorate 5 minutes after a person stops breathing, the city must maintain funding to fully staff its fire stations and protect 911 rapid response times that save lives. Whereas the city must prevent cuts to the number of police officers and firefighters to ensure the city's local police and fire departments have the resources necessary to keep residents safe. That's what they're asking for. 40% turnover rate. Mayor Patino, in looking at your bio on your website, you have decades of excellent service to the city of Santa Maria. Teacher from 1972 to 1982, school board member 1976 to 91, Marion Medical Board President 1994 to 2000, Code Compliance Board 1997 to 1999, council member since the year 2000, first female mayor 2012, and Elks Citizen of the Year in 2019. There's speculation that you're not seeking re-election. And if that's the case, I would challenge you to look and see, is this what you want your legacy to be? Every day, more and more people are learning who you are for this. I don't think this is how you'd like to leave office. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you. The City Council will now recess to a closed session and will reconvene to the regular meeting of the portion agenda at 5:30. Thank you. Before I call the meeting to order, I would like to acknowledge that the City Council has approved Mayor Pro Tem Soto participating remotely per AB 2449 for this evening. I would like to note that the interpreter for this evening is Ms. Rojo. Where is she? Oh, there she is. She's in the back, so if you need assistance with a listening device and you'd like interpretation services, you can see her. Antes de llamar a la Junta a orden, me gustaría notar que contamos con servicios de interpretación para esta Junta. La intérprete esta tarde es la señora Rojo. Está sentado atrás. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the City Council meeting of February 20th, 2024. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez.
Here.
Councilmember Escobedo.
Here.
Councilmember Cordero.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Soto.
Present.
Mayor Patino.
Here. City Attorney, Mr. Watson, would you please give the closed session report?
Yes, Madam Mayor. With respect to the two items, 3A and 3B, instructions were provided to the labor negotiators, and with respect to the public employment recruitment, information was provided to council. No further update.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda this evening is the public comment period. This time is reserved to accept comments from the public on matters not on the printed agenda. This evening, unless otherwise directed, speakers will have 3 minutes to comment. And how many do we have?
We have 3.
3, okay. Thank you. Gary Hall, followed by Matt Lewis, followed by Lori Tamura. Good evening, Mr. Hall.
Madam Mayor, council members, staff, and the citizens of Santa Maria. My name is Gary Hall. I'm a resident of Rancho Buena Vista Mobile Estates at 2135 North Railroad Avenue here in Santa Maria. I represent the North Santa Barbara County Manufactured Homeowners Team, or NSBIT. Our overarching goal remains to provide protection to all Santa Maria mobile home residents presently living in an unregulated rental market where the current model lease program has been ineffective in protecting homeowner equity and maintaining affordable mobile home housing. We believe that goal is achievable and would protect homeowners from large rent increases while providing park owners with a fair return. Over 100 other California jurisdictions have enacted effective rent stabilization ordinances and programs that have provided their mobile home park residents with the protection we seek. We continue to ask the City of Santa Maria to do the same. Now, as I've done before, I want to thank Council Members Soto, Escobedo, and Cordero for passing the June 6, 2022 motion, which reads, and I quote, "To examine the model lease agreement, looking for ways to improve it, and to look at alternatives." You will all recall that at the January 16 City Council meeting, Interim Assistant City Manager Wu presented his status update on the mobile home model lease program. Included in his report was the acknowledged need for the city to help disseminate information and to educate the public about the mobile home model lease program. This would require the performance of outreach, not unlike diverse forms of outreach previously provided by the city on other issues. We believe this would include the development of an outreach plan. We believe the outreach goal should be to engage all homeowners in all parks and make them aware of the existence of the model lease and empower them to become informed consumers. Please let me remind you again, many residents, even in the participating parks, do not know of the model lease existence, do not understand it, and remain confused about the program. Outreach meetings will no doubt be required along with the development of explanatory documents, including Spanish translations. Outreach needs will also include the education of local realtors, agents, and brokers. We, the mobile home residents, are committed to continue good faith discussions and efforts to achieve the overarching goals stated above, and we are ready and willing to work with the city to achieve that goal with or without the participation of the park owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Lewis, followed by Lori Tamura.
Good evening, Madam Mayor Patino, City Council, City staff. I want to thank you all for your undivided attention as I speak upon this very important and personal matter that on the surface seems to be only about money, but in reality, it is more importantly about time. My name is Matt Lewis. I have been a city employee going on 19 years now. I am also currently an e-board member and have proudly served in that role for almost 8 years. But first, I want to give some history that corresponds with Interim City Manager Posada's comment during the last council meeting 2 weeks ago, which stated, "We're trying to do the best we can given the financial constraints the city has." From 2008 to 2012, my fellow police officers, firefighters, and I gave back 4% a year in effort to help the city with said financial constraints. During this period, we still worked 100% of our schedule and continued to provide services to the community 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Other city employees gave back 5% a year and received 1 Friday off per month to make up for this pay cut. Our contract expired during this time period, and we, Local 2020, made the unprecedented decision to forego negotiations and continue to give concessions to the city because that's what true partners do. We believed the city and wanted to do what was best for all. What did the city do? Later, we found out that it continued to give department heads bonuses, also known by the city as performance-based incentives, that were funded on the backs of our concessions. It still angers me and disgusts me to this day, but I'll always respect and appreciate the decision of our past fire chief to not accept his bonus and while his employees gave their concessions. I ask you, was the decision to give those bonuses the best thing to do given the financial constraints? Today, we are seeing history repeat itself, and actions always speak louder than words. Our city manager position is the highest paid in the county, amongst other city managers, topping out at $344,000 per year. Over the past year, numerous executive staff members have received substantial raises from the city manager office without approval from you, the council. How is that the mentioned financial constraints do not apply to these positions? Measure U is a revenue source that is specific to public safety and was overwhelmingly passed by the citizens. The measure's main purpose is to maintain and enhance services. Sometimes those enhancements come in the form of more stations, increased staffing, and as you saw today, new equipment. If Measure U I'll just skip to the most important part, sorry. Time is the most valuable commodity of all of us truly have, and we can never make up for lost time. The time is being stolen from your firefighters and our families because the city refuses to pay us an average wage. I want to commend you for doing what is right for our brothers and sisters in blue. Our police officers deserve every penny they earn and then some. With that said, we are 22% behind in annual salary when compared to our counterparts. 26 more days a year, spouses shoulder the burden and stresses of being a single parent, many of which have their own full-time jobs to work. It means 26 and a half less days firefighters are able to spend with their children and more precious moments missed. I have 4 young boys you see here in the audience. Excuse me, this is very personal to me. And I'm missing out on many important moments such as sporting events, helping with homework, medical appointments, school field trips, and so much more. City Council, you have the ability to stop this pay disparity and prevent us from missing all these memorable moments with our family. Now is the time to show your appreciation and be there for your firefighters. We desperately need your help now more than ever. While all your kind words are wonderful to hear, your action of providing us a fair contract, which is simply asking for average pay, that is how you will make us feel valued and truly appreciated. Thank you for the extra time, and thank you for your
Thank you.
consideration.
Lori Tamura. Okay. Next item is the consent calendar. And before we approve the consent calendar, the clerk needs to advise us of supplemental memorandums.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This afternoon, 2 supplemental memorandums were provided to council as well as city executive staff and posted on the city's website. For those who were not aware of the supplemental memorandums, one was for item 10.A.1, and this was to approve and ratify the tentative agreement and successor memorandum of understanding with the Service Employees International Union Local 620 and the adoption of a resolution approving the CalPERS Comprehensive Schematic Pay Schedule. The edits were to the title page of the Memorandum of Understanding to correct the calendar years noted from 2024 to 2026 to calendar years 2024 to 2025. An additional error was also identified on page 2 of the salary schematic of attachment C, which has been corrected to clarify updates to the security guard classification. There was also another supplemental memorandum for agenda item 11C, which is a regular business item, but I wanted to bring to your attention at this time. This was for the review of the second quarter financial report ending December 31st, 2023, the adoption of a resolution approving second quarter amendments to the 2023-24 budget for proposed personnel and budget adjustments, and the adoption of a resolution approving the updated salary schematic. It was noted that there was an error on page 9, paragraph 1 of the second quarter financial report, which was attachment A. The edit updates to correct the percentage figures. There was also an identified error on page 2 of the salary schematic, which was attachment G, which was edited to clarify updates again to the security guard classification. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have items they wish to pull from the agenda? None? Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
With the amendments?
With the amendments.
Okay, with the amendments. Okay, thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar with the amendments. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Garleta Hernandez.
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero.
Aye.
Councilmember Escobedo.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Soto.
Aye.
Mayor Patino.
Aye. The next item will be the regular business item, receiving the presentation of the Santa Maria Fire Department Long Range Master Plan. The presentation is to be made by Mr. Frank Blackley from AP Triton.
Madam Mayor, if I could have 1 second.
Yes, Mr. Posada.
Councilmember Soto, could you please verify that there is no one over the age of 18 in your presence?
I can verify that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Frank Blackley. I'm with AP Triton. I am from Wilmington, North Carolina, so I will go ahead and throw a caveat out. If I say something you don't understand, it's because we like to slur a lot of our syllables in the South. So please forgive me for that. We've been working on this project for, I guess, a little over a year with the fire department and have recently completed it. So the purpose and approach for this is, for a master plan, the whole idea is to really kind of look at where the department is currently and where it needs to go in the future. What are the risks out there that they're facing now, and what could change based on demographics, community growth. We looked at, how the growth in the community is going to affect service delivery in the future with that. So it really kind of keeps the fire department from getting or lagging behind other organizations of similar types. The process, we analyze data. Most of all the decisions that we're making and looking at are based on the data that we received, either from their incident reports, our interviews when we were here last April, and then we really kind of look at those to influence, what are those risks, what are the performance measures that need to be done for the fire department with that as it moves forward to really kind of maintain the current and improved service delivery. A little bit about the community. As y'all well know, you got about 110,000 people, 23 square miles. You're a full service fire department. In other words, there are no volunteers. There are 6 fire stations and currently 63 career operations staff and 14 support services staff. Services you provide your traditional structural and wildland fire suppression efforts. EMS response at the basic level. In other words, they're basic EMTs, not paramedics. Hazardous material response at the operations level. Low angle rescue, swift water vehicle extrication. Life safety programs, which are fire inspections and plan reviews for new construction. Public education and prevention programs. So we started looking really at the service area, the organization. What does it look like, where current station is located, and how does that affect service delivery as you move forward? Population density, as you well know, population affects the number of responses typically that the department has. So looking at that population density, you'll see here in some maps coming up how all that kind of plays into this. The current Santa Maria Fire Department organizational structure, there is one little change that's been, since this was done, the secretary has been changed to an administrative assistant, I believe is the correct terminology for this. Administrative staff, there's the fire chief, a deputy fire chief, administrative battalion chief, departmental secretary, 3 business program leaders, training captain, office assistants, a fire marshal, 4 fire inspectors, an emergency services specialist. In operations, there are 3 shift battalion chiefs, 18 captains, 18 engineers, and aircraft rescue firefighting specialists, and 21 firefighters. So one of the things that we look at is the type of incidents that the fire department responds to, because that really kind of plays a huge role into what we'll be talking about as we move through this thing. And one thing that kind of stands out, and it's not unlike any other fire department that runs emergency medical calls in the United States, is that EMS encompasses almost 58% of their call volume. That is not unusual at all. The good intent calls, it could be an alarm activation that was not supposed to have occurred. And then, of course, you've got false alarms. So it depends on really how the firefighters code the incident types. But as you can see, the main type of service delivery is emergency medical services. We also perform what we call our community risk assessment, because we really wanted to see what type of risk are in the community that affects not just the firefighters, but the people that live here. One of the things that we always look at is the different type of occupancies. And an assembly type of occupancies, which is kind of what you've got here. It could be a church, it could be an arena, things of that nature. A restaurant is where people gather, and a lot of people may gather, and which can cause a problem if there's a fire, if there's an EMS incident. So you really need to kind of know where those are and be able to respond to those. Same thing with multifamily occupancies, where people gather in more than one family. The risk tends to go up because if you do have a fire, you don't have just one family involved, you have multiple families. And where are those located, and how does the fire department provide services to those? Same thing with buildings 3 or more stories in height. The higher the building goes, the more problems that the fire department has gaining access to where those people are located. Whether they're on a fourth floor, do they have a ladder truck available? So it becomes much more of an issue during an incident. Not only that, but the number of staff that is going to be required to be able to handle that type of incident. Much like buildings that are greater than 50,000 square feet, if you're having a fire in this type of a building, the things that you have to think about is how much hose do they need to deploy to get into where the seat of the fire is. That takes lots of personnel, whether it's just from Santa Maria or their automatic aid or mutual aid organizations. Fire flow is greater than 2,500 gallons per minute. And once again, it kind of goes back to the same thing with the large square foot buildings. To deploy this amount of water on a major structure fire is going to take quite a bit of staff to be able to do that, and also a good water supply, and then equipment. As you know, much like all of California, earthquake risk are a problem in Santa Maria. This is nothing really unusual, but where does that occur? And then what happens when you do have a major event? How do you deal with those things? How do you make sure that continuity of government continues? Wildfire risk, for the most part, the wildfire risk inside Santa Maria is low, as you can see. Of course, as you go up into the hills, it becomes much more of an issue with that. But for the most part, inside the urban area of the city, the chance of a wildland-urban interface fire occurring is rather minimal. Service delivery and performance. So one of the things that we look at is the number of incident responses that the fire department goes on. And I will talk about 2020 especially, because that was during the height of COVID. And much like everywhere else in the United States, the number of calls that the fire department responded to dropped. Because it could be the type of calls that they were being dispatched to. If it wasn't a true emergency, they may not have gone. But the overall trend is an increasing service delivery problem that the department is facing. So in other words, the calls are increasing. They are not decreasing. Monthly response, workload history, for the most part is level. Most of the year, February tends to be the lowest. Daily responses are very, very similar. Hourly responses, of course, as people wake up and they get back involved in the community, the number of responses tend to increase, whether it's a motor vehicle crash, an EMS type of incident, a fire, whatever it may be. Unit workload history, the engines, of course, are typically going to be the type of apparatus that are going to respond to most calls. With that, and it's not anything unusual here, and as you can see, they have increased each of those 3 years. Call processing time by incident, the call processing times are actually pretty good with that, and some of this will change, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute, as with the new combined dispatch center for Santa Barbara County. Turnout times by incident, these are a little bit higher, and we'll talk more about this in just a few minutes, but overall they're about the same for turnout time. In other words, that is how long does it take from the time that the firefighters are notified and to the time they get en route is what we call turnout time. How quick does that happen? First arrival units, overall they're very similar, whether they're a medical type of event, fire, or other type of call. Concurrency. I want to talk about this just a little bit because this is where you really have to pay attention to these numbers. And what we're talking about with concurrency is that do you have more than one incident at the same time? And as you can see, 61% of the calls, there's only one truck out. For 2 incidents, it increases up to almost 30%. And what you really want to be aware of is as those single incidents start decreasing and the more than one incident starts to increase, it affects service delivery, because what happens is if Station 1 is out on a call and they're not able to respond, the next closest station may have to. But what occurs then is you have a longer response time because that unit is tied up on an incident. So just some things to think about as you move forward. All incident demand density, not unusual throughout the entire city. Fire incident demand density is around Station 1 and some more down towards Station 2. EMS demand density, obviously in the center core of the city. And travel time, all of these are within 4 minutes. Everything that is green, so pretty much, for the most part, most things inside the city limits, they can get to within 4 minutes. Support programs, communications and dispatch is currently provided by the police department. That will be moving to the Santa Barbara Combined Communications Center. I think in July is when that is scheduled to become operational. Life safety services and public education, the inspection process of buildings within the city. Plan reviews, what happens when new construction takes place, who is reviewing those to make sure they meet fire code requirements. And then, of course, public education, you're wanting to make sure that the public understands about preventing fires, not just fires, but you kind of look at all types of risk moving forward. Special operations, primarily it's going to be dealing with technical rescue, high-angle extrication services. Emergency medical services, you do that a lot, as you already know. Training and continuing medical education. The training component is new firefighters as they come on board, and then the existing firefighters that are currently working. How do they make sure that they stay proficient at what they do, and then also with the continuing medical education to make sure they're proficient at the basic EMT level. So conclusions and recommendations. Some of the findings, as we do the report, these are things that we notice and are just what we consider findings. So the city's budget revenues continue to be strained, keeping pace with inflation and fuel growth and expenditures. That is not only an issue here, but I think it's throughout the entire United States. Just the cost of inflation over the last several years. Data from CAD was missing for call processing times with this, and we really kind of expect this to change with the new dispatch center coming online later this summer. The fire department makes good use of what we call INFRS +1 codes. In other words, the INFRS is the National Fire Incident Reporting System. It's the way that all the fire incidents are reported to not only California, but at the national level. In other words, they add a different code to it to really kind of better define, is it a structure fire in a commercial building? Is it a 1- and 2-family dwelling? It really helps define what exactly the calls that they're going on. Currently, the fire department does not have a defined schedule to inspect all buildings, but is implementing a program to identify where all those commercial occupancies are located. And we'll talk more about this when we get to recommendations. We also don't like to necessarily find everything negative and things that they can improve upon. We did notice that the Fire Prevention Bureau has made some pretty dramatic steps. So I was a part of the 2019 study that the city did for the fire department, and I can tell you, because I specifically looked at the Fire Prevention Bureau then, and now they've made some dramatic improvements with that. Not only there, but we got some kudos when I was doing some of the interviews here when I was in April from the public. City's general fund property tax revenue continues to grow at a moderate annual rate. The staffing is such that overtime can be excessive at times with over 30% on an annual basis. The city's cost recovery fees have been updated but not fully implemented. Currently, the ratio of firefighters is 0.64 per 1,000 population, and this is outside both the national and regional ranges. The amount of time needed to assemble an effective response force tripled in 2022. I want to talk about that just a little bit. What we found when we didn't change the data that we received, but what we did when we really kind of dug into it, there was one call where there was a battalion chief that had over 2,300 second response time. So that skewed all of this data here. So when you take that out, the effective response force was pretty much within normal range. Standard operating guidelines have not been consistently reviewed or evaluated recently. I can tell you that, and what I really kind of failed to mention at the beginning, all of this stuff that we're talking about is what we found when we were doing the report. A lot of things have changed really since then with Chief Dandridge. I do know that the operational guidelines, that process is changing. There's not appeared to be a comprehensive succession plan to ease personnel and leadership changes due to attrition and growth. That is another thing that is also changing. The fire department provides medical examinations for firefighters now, and I think that was from a grant that was initially received. That needs to continue, is one of our recommendations, and it'll be down here too, is that the reason being is because firefighters have a much greater risk of developing cancer than the general public. And being able to find, if they've got an issue during a medical examination is extremely important. Call processing and turnout times are well above their goals. Data collection for the training is difficult to evaluate without the extensive data engineering, but the training staff is working to improve that process. Medical priority and dispatch. In other words, what that means is that when a call comes into the 911 center, or however the call comes in, they start screening the type of incident it is. In other words, is it a cardiac event? Is somebody having difficulty breathing? Have they fallen down and had scratched their knee? So each of those different types of incidents really should require a different type of response, whether it's the fire department or just EMS. With that. So being able to implement that emergency medical dispatching service when the new system comes online in July will probably make a big change with that. Not unusual, most EMS incidents are in Station 1 district. The fire department does not have a dedicated training facility with drill grounds. In other words, they're having to do all their training at their stations. All fire stations have extractors and washers. In other words, they're able to clean their turnout gear, which is good because one of the things that can cause cancer amongst firefighters is dirty turnout gear. So in other words, being able to clean them sufficiently after a fire is something that they should be doing all the time. Let's see, the developer for Blosser Ranch will be providing property for new Fire Station 2. I believe that is already in motion. For that. The Training Bureau now has a new admin battalion chief, civilian safety and training coordinators, and training captain, improving the efficiencies of what they're doing in the training division. So moving on to short-term recommendations and highlights. Obviously need to identify all those commercial occupancies and target hazards out there. And I kind of give you a real quick synopsis on that is that just because there are certain types of occupancies in California that are not required to be inspected doesn't mean that there are not problems in those buildings. Do they have locked doors? If it's a restaurant, have they cleaned their hood system in the last 5 years? Not being able to identify those buildings and conduct inspections increases the risk not only to the people that are in there, but to the firefighters that have to respond. Develop a schedule to inspection all commercial occupancies, and that kind of goes back to that. California has got certain requirements of buildings such as high-rises, hospitals, residential buildings that have to be inspected annually. All others may not have to be inspected. Review the adopted fee schedule and implement proposed increases. Immediately increase staffing levels by 1 additional paid firefighter per shift for a total of 3 personnel. I think that has already been approved. It's just the matter of trying to get those people hired. Follow through with the planned implementation of criteria-based dispatch, and we've kind of already touched on that. In other words, with the new dispatch system coming online, they'll be able to really kind of better define what types of calls that they should respond to. Consider a mobile integrated healthcare option in the fire department. In other words, how can the fire department partner with other agencies potentially to look at the types of EMS responses that they're going to and really kind of get more involved in the community. Implement a peak hours quick response pilot program for 180 days. In other words, is there some way to really kind of look at what type of apparatus or people are responding to emergency medical calls, sending a different, smaller unit instead of a fire truck for that. Reviewing policies and guidelines annually, which that has started. Evaluate, create, and implement a comprehensive succession plan that is also underway. Implement an annual medical examination program for all operational firefighters. That is extremely important, that needs to be done. Develop a quality control process to review incident times. That kind of goes back to where we thought we had a huge increase in the number of not being able to.
Excuse me, Mr. Blackley. Go ahead.
Developer quality control for the review and incident times, that goes back to when we were talking about the effective response force being much greater. So being able to implement that solution will improve, making sure that their times are correct. Determinative Station 2 and 6 meet seismic standards. This will obviously change with the construction of the new Station 2 and if Station 6 is replaced at the airport. Formally adopt performance goals for incident response. In other words, there needs to be something formally adopted by the fire department, and it's a recommendation that City Council should approve that also. Hire additional fire inspectors. That will probably need to occur as they determine the number of commercial occupancies that are actually within the city for inspection. Develop a new development and impact fee to be used to fund the capital infrastructure of the fire department. For that, especially if the city grows specifically to the east side. Enhance fire and life safety programs to develop a departmental community risk reduction plan. In other words, I'm not just talking about doing fire prevention. We're talking about implementing some type of a risk reduction plan that includes all risk. Whether it's a medical risk, it's a wildland. Even though you have very little issues with a wildland-urban interface, where are those issues within the city that you may need to address? Provide an appropriate training facility. In other words, there needs to be somewhere that the firefighters can train, that they have a tower, they've got a place where they can drive their apparatus and do training on that to make sure they're driving correctly. And develop an inspection program for fire hydrants, which can get you additional ISO credit for your score. Long-term recommendations, develop a plan for a new fire station on the east side as the area begins to develop. That needs to be figured out where that might occur, where that development is occurring, and how you need to plan for it in the future. Review EMS operations, determine if ALS or advanced life support should be provided by the fire department. I know that Santa Barbara County will be taking over EMS services this year. Any questions or comments from you all, and also if Chief Dandridge is available, if you have any questions for him.
Any questions from the dais? None?
Madam Mayor, Council, if I could
Yes.
take a moment
Go
just
ahead,
to thank
Chief
Mr.
Dandridge.
Blackley, AP Triton,
Yes.
for presenting this, developing this master plan, and coming and taking the time to present it to Council today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I guess no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I
Yes.
have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Yes.
No worries. My question is pertaining to the call volumes, and I believe you mentioned in your report that the stations that receive the most call volumes tend to be stations 1 and 2, the one on Carmen and on Cook, correct?
Yes, Station 1 has the largest call volume. Chief Dandridge, you want to add to that?
I do. If we do a breakdown, we have Madam Mayor and Council, we have a breakdown. 30% of the calls that we respond are responded from Station 1. We have 19% out of Station 2, 19% out of Station 3, 12% out of Station 4, 19% out of Station 5, and we have 1% responding out of Station 6. So there is, the majority does respond out of Station 1. After that, there's an equal distribution amongst the other stations.
Got it, thank you. And Chief, and so in conversations that we've had, we've discussed, as a city, we've discussed the building of a new fire station with a new development here on the corner of Battles Depot and Stoll. It would be actually moving Station 2 to that area. And so how would that impact the call volume? Do you see that, would us moving Station 2 support or be helpful in reducing the stress that comes with the number of calls that station receives?
Understood. Madam Mayor, Council, Member Soto, When we looked at relocating Station 2, we looked at a totality of the service delivery that we have with the stations that we have existing. One of the concerns that we have for the existing Fire Station 2 right now is its limitation to go west due to the railroad blockage of the dead-end road. So that limits their ability to provide service going to for the community going to the west. When we looked at the possible relocation at La Brea and Blosser, what we looked at is a totality of moving that. And in addition to other asks that I've looked at and asked for, possibly opening other stations, I believe the additions that we're looking at and the moving of Station 2 provide the best service model, response model for the community to provide service that we need to for the community.
Chief Dandridge, let me ask you a question. So on the training facility, where do the firefighters go now?
Right now, Madam Mayor, what we do is we makeshift what we can at the different fire stations, but majority, when we do need to do training requiring a tower, we go to Lompoc. And what we do is we take our engines out of service. Sometimes we have to backfill with overtime to ensure that the community still deserves and gets the service that we have, and we take those engines out of service to go to the Lompoc facility to the training that we need there.
The one that should have been built here in Santa Maria, right?
I was not here when that happened. Yes, ma'am.
I was, I remember. Thank you. Any other questions?
I do have a question.
Yes,
to
Ms.
something
Aguilera
you-
Hernandez?
You stated that you backfill with overtime. Is that correct?
Yes, what we do. What we want to do is ensure that the residents of the community have the service that they're paying for. So what we do is sometimes, depending on the situations, depending on the training that's occurring, we take a look at the totality of that to see if it warrants the backfill of personnel to ensure that the service levels remain the same for the city. So depending on the training that's being conducted and what is needed, we make those accommodations.
The report stated that overtime is excessive over 30% on an annual basis. What is excessive compared to other departments?
So when that report was done, Madam Mayor, council members, excellent question. What I did is I had conversation with Mr. Blackley, and what I did, I ran an independent report myself to see what the numbers were, to see if we could justify that 30%. When I ran the number and I had the business, my finance, at headquarters, I actually run the numbers also. I actually have the numbers that we have come up with, and excuse me, I have to put on my glasses. Fiscal year 2020, we actually had a total of 42,792 hours. A total of 18% is what was allocated for overtime in regards to our budget and personnel costs. In fiscal year 21, we had 20.92% that was allocated to pay for overtime. Fiscal year 2022, we had 23.78% that was allocated in our funds dedicated to the overtime costs. And in fiscal 23, which was last year, we had a total of 17.76%. Where they got the number of 30%, I do not know, but I wanted to confirm and give the numbers that we ran, and I had them run separately, and the numbers that I shared with you today are the numbers that we came up with. Overtime is a cost of doing business in the fire service. We have a service model that is unique to any other entity. So when we have daily, Madam Mayor and council members, we have daily on duty 20 personnel on duty, minimum daily staffing that we provide for the community. So at any time, if we have a captain, engineer, or firefighter that calls in sick, uses vacation that has been allocated to them, we do not have the luxury of shutting down that engine. We need to continue the service that we have. Therefore, we need to hire and fill that position so our responses continue. So overtime is one of those costs that incurs due to us doing business, and we try to limit those things, but those are the numbers that I had when I ran them independently.
Thank you.
The reason why I make that comment is because we've heard from the firefighters are stating they're not able to see their family, right? So it is the call of service. If your boss asks you, can you work overtime? You're going to say yes, because that's who you are. You're a firefighter. So that is where we have the trade-off of the firefighters who are here saying we're away from our families for a long time, and if we can fill those with other firefighters and not require so much overtime, then that's kind of where I'm, concerned that the firefighters will always do and put their job first because they took that duty and they take it very seriously, but their families are the ones who pay the price for that. And
Madam-
so that's where I'm coming from.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Aguilar Hernandez, I understand your point there. One of the things, if I could clarify, one of the issues that we had, I cannot speak to before I came here. But since I've been here, we've been actually short-staffed. When I came upon, when I was brought to the city of Santa Maria, we were short 10 personnel. And that was a hardship for our firefighters. We had in line a recruit academy of 3. And you would ask a simple question, why would you put on a recruit academy of 3 when there's 10 shortages? There's a reason. One of those reasons is the fact that we're a young department. When we see the vacancies that needed to be filled, they were in the upper levels, captains, engineers. We can't just hire firefighters to fill these positions. So what we've actually done, 2 weeks ago, we conducted the past 8 months, excuse me, if I could back up a little bit, the past 8 months, we've gone trying to get our firefighters qualified to promote to these next levels, to these next positions. 2 weeks ago, we had captain's exam in which we're promoting 2 captains to fill the 2 captain vacancies come the 24th of this month. This week, right now, we're currently conducting engineer promotional exams in which we're looking at filling the 5 engineer positions that are currently vacant. We also have a recruit academy that started last week of 5 lateral firefighters to fill some of the vacancies, and another one of entry-level firefighters that I've asked for immediately after that to fill the vacancies that we have. When we fill the shortages that we have, the vacancies that we have in the fire department, you'll see a little bit of that overtime that is requested of the firefighters alleviated in a bit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Escobar?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can we go to the presentation? I have a question about one of the, I believe was a recommendation. I don't know if it's possible. That one. What is that? I would like to more clarification in regards to that pilot program for 180 days. What does that consist?
Right, I think in the report, we looked at using overtime to be able to staff a quick response vehicle. In other words, their primary goal would be to go to EMS responses. They could also go to a fire if they needed to, if it was necessary, but really to kind of look at how would that affect the engines not having to go on a call. Or in other words, they were in service and they could go to a call if they needed to. So it was just kind of a pilot program, and we did the same thing, I think, and we did a report similar to this in Salinas, and that was a recommendation for them too, is really to kind of pilot that to see, well, is it really going to save on wear and tear of the apparatus, not having a unit available for that. So that's what that means. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Cordero?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, when you talked about going to Lompoc to the tower, how often does that happen? Does it happen annually, biannually, quarterly, or do you know?
We require 240 hours for each member of training per year. Thank you very much for the approval of the training request personnel that I've requested in the past year. Since the implementation of that, we have added a civilian training coordinator who's in charge of actually coordinating, capturing the subject matter that we're doing, so that way it can be easily deciphered by people that are looking and captured for records. We also added a training captain to my headquarters staff, in which I've asked him to coordinate the training that is conducted monthly, on a monthly basis, that is sent out to our troops to ensure that we're on top of our game when we're responding to the community. So monthly, we have monthly training evolutions that are expected of our fire crews to participate in, to ensure that they're up to speed with their capabilities and skills.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other questions, comments from here? Thank you, Mr. Blackley.
Thank
you,
you.
Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilor.
So I guess this was just a report, and...
Madam Mayor, we do have some requests to speak.
Okay.
I also would like to point out that we do have a binder for the agenda and that it is available on the back table. And so if you have it, please put it back so that it's available to all participants.
He needs it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lori Tamura, and had the opportunity to review the long-range master plan. And I would ask that you accept the presentation tonight, but direct the staff to present this report to the chamber, the home builders, the realtors, the insurance companies, because there's a lot of information in here that is questionable as far as how it impacts all of those businesses. The important one is that every single map in this document does not identify the Blosser Ranch fire station site, does not reflect the plans for a fire station in Area 9, and there's also a number of questions about the build-out scenario that the general plan update is looking at for the city of Santa Maria, which is about 145,000 people ultimately. And right now, the plan, again, it's a long-range plan. I don't know how long this range is, but the population targeted in this plan is only 125,000 people. So there's about 20,000 people missed in this report. We also want to talk with you and the preparer of the report and the fire department on how they color code different things, because everything is bright red, high fire, all of this information is relevant, but know that almost every homeowner now is getting multiple increases in fire insurance coverage, and that deters future homeowners being able to even qualify for fire insurance. And the fire insurance companies, or the insurance companies, look at these plans as a way to justify the increase, substantial increase in homeowners insurance. And that should impact everybody in this room as well as the city overall. Developer fees already exist in the city. The city is updating their development fee program, but if you don't have Blossom Ranch fire station on here, and you don't have Area 9 fire station on here, and you don't have the future ones, then they don't exist on your city plan. So why would we be collecting fees for a fire station that doesn't exist? So this report needs to be reflective of decisions that have already been made, and it is not. Also want to make sure that you cover the short-term and mid-term policies. There's nothing in there about Blosser Ranch. I went through this whole document. Nothing's in there about Blosser Ranch. This report definitely needs to be updated to be a true long-term plan. And we are here in the community ready to work with the fire department to make sure that it's a good working document for the future. So please do not adopt this, accept it, refer it back, and then we'll come back with an updated document that reflects what we need in this community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Lindy Hatcher.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening, Ms. Hatcher.
Yes, good evening. Lindy Hatcher speaking on behalf of the Home Builders Association of the Central Coast. We asked that you have a continuance on the city's long-range plan that we're talking about tonight. We would like to see more long-range planning in this report. The majority of the information is currently already existing, and it needs work on several topics pertaining to housing, including the fire severity zones, flood areas, and fire stations. And we ask you to please consider this document and how it could negatively affect homeowners and business insurance costs. Let me share an example from your neighbors to the north. La Plaza in Atascadero is owned by the president of the HBA's company, Z Villages. Last year, their insurance cost was $25,000. This year, the best quote they could get is $90,000. The highest is $180,000. And when I asked why, the reasons were cited by previous carriers as well as carriers not willing to insure the property. The property had short-term rentals. They have since repurposed those flats. They have a rooftop bar. They have habitational uses above commercial and fire risk. Their dramatic rate increase was a result of continued fire losses in California and negotiations at the state level between the insurance carriers and California State Insurance Commissioner. It's not the new homes that are burning, and we need to keep that in mind. La Plaza is not an isolated incident. So developers working on Richards Ranch in Santa Maria and Orchid and a project in Paso Robles are seeing interest rates double as well. So it's happening all over the state. According to the California Building Industry Association, existing HOA fees are skyrocketing. Some increased from $250 to $1,100 per month just to cover insurance premiums. So we ask you to please use cautions when labeling high fire hazard and wildfire hazard zones, because everybody looks at these, insurance carriers, anyone that is working on housing projects, and these designations are challengeable. They used old information, so if you see information that's classified as an open field, yet you know there are buildings on there, contact them and they will correct those errors. Another concern is a lack of projected fire stations as the city grows, so we anticipate the need for 2 or more additional fire stations in addition to the one planned for Blosser Ranch due to population growth projected. It's our understanding that the city of Santa Maria is expanding its airport fire station to accommodate the Airport Business Park and Richards Ranch projects, and we request that these fire stations be included in your report and along with the required acreage and projected construction expenses, especially if there are plans to raise fees, because others look at this when approving projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ernest Armenta? Good evening, Mr. Armenta.
It's been a long time, huh? I thought things would change here. I see we had the agenda. I thought things would be more better. You know, Madam Chair, I can't help but I listen to these fellows back here, and then I see the way you guys are acting, and I see this presentation, and I hear the developers and Mrs. Tamora and Urban Concepts. I see what they're worried about, because they know they're going to have to pay more to get their projects developed. It's either they pay or we, the taxpayers, pay. Because I'm pretty sure they're not getting paid, but we're still getting something out of them. I wish I was here for public comment, Madam Chair. But on this issue, since this is my first time at a city council meeting, I'll just hold my comments but I'm not happy. You can't really be happy with this presentation or with everything you're hearing, Madam Chair. Things used to be different. There was a time when these men right here, men and women, they wouldn't be begging. No, I can't believe that they're begging Mike Cordero for a livable wage. My position is just to get rid of all of them. Drain the swamp. Remember, before I leave, all this is under your watch, Escobedo, and your watch. And come election time, I assure you that the heads are going to roll. Thank you.
Matt Cherkoff?
Mayor, City Council, City staff. First, I want to thank you for investing into a long-range plan. The fire department has always been kind of last up when it comes to projecting growth. It's always been a response to something rather than getting out ahead of something. So I want to thank you for that, because this is very important to us. You all know the city is growing, it's infilling, it's expanding, and we need to get ahead of that. Something I wanted to highlight. I want to highlight a few things in this report. Attachment A, page 26. 0.64 firefighters per 1,000 population. That is lower than the national average, the high, the low, the Western average. And that is something that is often cited in other agencies' reports about how Santa Maria is so understaffed. And this report correctly identified that as well. So I want to thank you for that. The gentleman that presented, he mentioned certain circumstances where data was filtered out. And as I went through the report, there were mentions of data being filtered out for a number of reasons. And mostly it was cited as outliers, right? But these outliers often have good reason for it. A battalion chief's excessive response could be due to he or she got pulled away to our mutual aid districts, and the response back to the city was quite delayed. So before we filter out data, I think we need to understand what that data actually is and why. Because you can't just throw out the outliers and then just look at the cluster in the middle and make a decision based on the cluster. We need to understand all of the data, not just the data that tells us the story we're looking for. Another thing I want to highlight, medical evaluations. We just got those, and they were grant funded. We've been asking for these for as long as I've worked here, 12 years. And it took a federal grant for us to get these medical evals. And they discovered cancer in one of our members and other ailments. And I want to say this is really important going forward on an annual basis for the health of your workforce. We don't need another cancer claim. We don't need people dying on the job. That is something that nobody wants, and we certainly don't want that. The map, figure 63, 4-minute response time map. That figure shows a 4-minute response time that covers the entire city from every current station location. I know there's talk about relocating Station 2, and I think we need to talk about that some more. Some of the preliminary data from the previous fire administration showed that with the Blossom Ranch project, that was going to have an increase in call volume in that area, and it didn't relieve the workload from Station 2, it just relocated the workload to other stations. So I know that decision was made prior to this administration, and it was made after the last administration left. So we need to get ahead of that. Plus figures 34 and 35 show where the call density is in the city for both EMS and fire. And that call density is along the main corridor in the city, which is where you're moving a station away from. Those are the most sensitive populations. Those are the people that truly need these services. So I hope we can have some more discussion about that. Extractors, we have commercial washers in some of the stations. We don't have extractors, but there are some other things in this report that I think it would be important for us to get together and discuss. You can hear from the boots on the ground, you can hear from administration, and you can hear from the consultant that prepared this. One other thing, very important, investigations wasn't referenced in this. As you heard from one of our fire inspectors recently, he investigated a number of arsons this last year. He had 5 arson arrests. That's really important. We don't have a program. There's no plan for a program, and I think we need to get ahead of that. We don't need to have arsonists running around like what happened with the Town Center Hotel, where an arsonist burned the place to the ground. And luckily, nobody died in those fires. And I also want to thank Ms. Tamara. She brought up some things that are really important about presenting it out to the community, but also looking at the data again before this report is finalized, because I think that's important. It needs to be a living document, not just a received and filed document. So thank you for your time on that.
Thank you very much. So we're just receiving this presentation tonight. Any other questions from the dais? Yes.
How often does this document get updated?
I don't know that. Chief Dandridge.
Madam Mayor, Council, in regards to how often this is done, this is the first one that I've been involved with, but I would say that we have to reevaluate whenever we have one of these things to see as needed would be my answer that I would say. Typically, Mr. Blackley?
5 to 10 years.
I was going to say 3 to 5 years, but he said 5. But I would say 3 to 5 years, and we have to reevaluate what we're doing and see if we have to pivot and make new goals for the city.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Blackley?
Yeah, a lot of the information in the report was based on when we were here a year ago, and as things change, there's always going to be an update that takes place. Usually a master plan is supposed to anywhere from 5 to 10 years, but a strategic plan, you're looking 3 to 5 years, because you really want to, we give you a whole lot of things to think about here, but you really need to kind of pare those down to what can be done in the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Blackley. Thank you very much, Chief Dandridge. Next item on the agenda is a regular business item, the adoption of a resolution approving an amendment to the professional services agreement, LLC DBA 2M Waste Solutions. Staff report comments are to be made by Interim Assistant City Manager Wu.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council.
It's
The council. Back in October 2022, the city issued an RFP for debris removal services and received one response from Two Mexicans LLC, or other known as 2M. In January 2023, City Council approved a resolution to grant a contract to 2M to provide debris removal services. We use 2M primarily for homeless encampment cleanups. Our PD officers, as they assist with homeless encampments, would often call on 2M to assist with the removal of debris, which can include mattresses or anything that you would find that's a part of encampments. That contract with 2M is a one-year contract that has expired, and we are coming to the council to ask for authorization to extend that contract for another 3 years into June of 2027 and up to an amount of $250,000. This is a pretty simple request that we're asking for the council, and I invite any questions that you may have.
Any questions of Mr. Wu? None at all? Okay. I'll bring this back to the council for any discussion or questions. Madam Clerk, are there any correspondence or requests to speak? Okay.
There are none.
Thank you. Bring this back to council for discussion or questions. Do I have a, Mr. Escobedo?
Yeah, and actually that may be a question for Mr. Wu. When we talk about cleaning, the removal services, do we have a specific area where we most where we use them more often in Santa Maria?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Escobedo, in reviewing the invoices that we receive, I would say there is a little bit of a pattern. I would say more than half of the invoices are for locations along Broadway, Blosser, Depot, and areas around the railroad. So there are some hotspots throughout the city for which encampment cleanup usually occurs, and it's along those corridors.
Has there been any approach with the county, with the railroad people to partner together on during these calls for service?
Yeah, so that's always a balancing act. The areas along the railroad, as you may be aware, it's private property, and so preferably we would like property owners to take care of those debris. These ongoing and continuing cleanups to prevent encampments from spreading.
Thank you.
Any other questions, further discussion? Okay, do I have a motion?
I move.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve staff's recommendation. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll? amendments to the 2023-24 budget for proposed personnel and budget adjustments, and the adoption of a resolution approving the updated salary schematic. Staff report presentation is to be given by Interim Finance Director Bradford.
Thank you, Mayor Council. You just read out these 3 actions that will be in front of you today as part of the Q2 financial report. So we'll first take a look at the economic outlook, move on to looking at the general fund and Measure U revenue and expenditure trends, then look at the enterprise funds, and finally look at some proposed budget amendments that are recommended for adoption by the city manager. So first, taking a look at the economic outlook and just a few key indicators. As of 2023, the GDP was 2.3% growth. So we are still showing an economic expansion, but at a very modest rate. And there is still some consensus among the economists that recession is possible, and there's definitely no predictions of greater expansion. The unemployment in the US has remained at very low rates. As of January, it was at 3.7%, which is definitely considered to be at full employment for the country. The US inflation for 2023 was 3.4%, and we do expect that the Federal Reserve will continue to lower the rates to get to that desired level of 2%, but it may be a longer time period and may go all the way into 2026. So first, taking a look at trends in our general fund. I do have a little bit of not as good a news this quarter. The property tax is a very stable source, as you know, and it will not decrease unless properties are being valuated downward. So that is on budget and is a little bit higher than we originally predicted by 8.5%. However, the sales tax is showing some concern in this quarter and is trending below budget. So we did receive data, which it's a little bit lagged. So this data is as of the end of September because of the way that the payments are processed through the state. But we are seeing a 3.8% decline in our sales tax compared to Q2 of previous fiscal year, and it is trending below budget. And the trend below budget at this point may be as much as $1 million. So we'll continue to watch that trend as we go into Q3. Transient occupancy tax has also come in lower than expected. We are at 10.9% lower than last fiscal year, and we are also trending below budget. So that trend may be a decline of about $500,000. Now, on licenses, permits, and fees, we are trending within our expectations, or 9.6% better, but it is 18% lower than last year. However, there is a good explanation because there was a large project. So this slide here is prepared by our partner, HDL Companies, who we partner with for our sales tax review. They monitor the sales tax receipts and reports for all the businesses in the city. So if you look at the left side, that's the city of Santa Maria. The middle is the county of Santa Barbara. And then on the right side, it says HDL state, which means everybody in the state, which they have a great share of the municipalities who contracts with HDL is part of this data. So as you can see, there is a number of areas where the sales tax has been decreasing. The new motor vehicle sales is definitely going down, which is significant for us. Building materials, service stations, petroleum, grocery stores, and plumbing and electrical supplies have all shown a fairly significant decrease in this quarter. So on the expenditure side for departments that are general fund funded, the biggest variance is in the police department of $1.6 million savings for this year, but as a percentage, it's only 4.3% because that is the largest budget. We do have 20 police officer vacancies still, but 8 are poised to complete the academy. In the fire department, we saved about $875,000 through the quarter two, which is 5.8% under budget, and that's due to less activity in mutual aid and some capital improvement projects. The community development is 866 under budget, primarily due to the timing of the general plan, so we expect that those dollars will be expended. And then recreation and parks was at 5.2% under budget, or 687,000 in savings due to several vacancies in administration, and then also contractual services projects and timing. So if we look at Measure U, our revenue for Measure U is on track so far at 51.2%. However, our expenditures are lower than 50%, but that is all due to the large projects for fire department that are programmed into this year's budget. So that's that $21 million that you see on the slide. Looking at the enterprise funds, the water revenue is doing very well. We've collected 8.9% more, or $2.4 million, due to higher sales of water. Expenditures were 11% lower than budget. However, we should note that the Central Coast Water Authority, which is the contract with the state, is $1 million higher than it was in the prior year. Solid waste is under budget, but that is all due to significant capital improvement projects. And Santa Maria Regional Transit and Breeze show a fare box ratio of 12.1%, and it's only $5,000 higher than the prior year. So the budget adjustments that are recommended with this quarter two report are summarized in this table. And what this tells you is that if you approved all of the proposed budget adjustments, you would be approving a total of $1.185 million in expenditures within the current fiscal year, and that would all be drawn from reserves. And then on annualized ongoing impact, that would mean about $4.2 million. So essentially, you would be increasing the budget for the following year and thereafter for these particular items by $4.2 million. So I'll go through the summaries of the budget adjustments, and the dollars that I'm showing on these slides are all in annual dollars, not just for this fiscal year. So the City Attorney's Office has two requests that are recommended to move forward. One would be an addition of a Deputy City Attorney, City Prosecutor position. And then the City Attorney's Office is also requesting one FTE or one position for Confidential Technician 2. The City Manager's Office is requesting a change to create a position of an Economic Development Manager in-house to be able to work more closely with the city and be more closely connected to the policies and the interests of the city. And that would be offset as of next fiscal year by a reduction with the Chamber of Commerce contract for economic development, which will expire this June. The City Manager's Office is also requesting 3 positions for confidential technicians and 2 positions for business program leaders. Those positions have been with the city for nearly 2 years now. They were funded by the ARPA funds. And since those funds are expiring, this is a request to fund the positions on an ongoing basis with general fund. Community Development is asking 1 position for Deputy Building Official. And Finance Department is requesting 2 positions for confidential technicians in payroll who have also been funded by the ARPA funds. The Fire Department is requesting an addition of 9 firefighters, most of whom are ready to be brought on board, and the recruitment has already occurred, and that will cost about $1.4 million to the general fund on an ongoing basis. Recreation and Parks is requesting $500,000 for water refuse and sewer operating expenditures. And they're also requesting one position for Senior Park Services Officer and one position for Account Clerk. The Account Clerk would be funded by the Special District Fund. And then Utilities is requesting a position of Wastewater Supervisor and a vehicle purchase associated with it, as well as Water Resources Manager and a Business Program Leader. The last request in front of you does not have any financial impact that's immediate, but to be able to better clarify the structure of middle management and the business leader classification broadband, the city is recommending that you would approve a classification or an approval of 3 new classifications, which would be administrative leader, program leader, and business leader. Those will be replacing, as the city works through the change in the program, the existing business program leader positions, and so this is not a request for any new positions. And that concludes my report. Your first action is to receive and file. Second would be to adopt the resolution adopting the budget amendments, and then the last is the resolution approving the reclassification.
Any questions from the dais? Thank you very much, Ms. Bradford. No, go ahead, Mr. Escobedo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can we go back on the presentation?
Maybe. Is that a specific slide?
When we talk about the new positions.
This?
Yeah, that one, one before that. The first one. The first one, the 17, I believe, or 16. 16.
16?
Yeah. That one. Like, so, yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to find on the report that I have that was posted the 3 confidential technicians positions that are in this request by the city manager's office. I see them here, but I cannot find it on the agenda that was posted online. Just trying to. I'm on the resolution page.
On the resolution, it's item number 4.
Number 4, increase location for 1 full
It is right here.
time, 2. Okay. Yeah. Just want to make sure that it's on. It was what it was posted online. So thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do have a question about the deputy city attorney, city prosecutor position. What does that consist of, and what are we looking at for that position?
If I may, thank you very much for the question. The purpose of this is twofold. With the city attorney absorbing the risk function, we identified a number of gaps that we have been paying for private litigation services. So in one respect, we pay $75,000 in professional services for a outsourcing prosecutor who is now over 80 years old and is positioned to retire. In the second instance, we have civilian attorneys who are providing civil litigation for risk in terms of subrogation and trying to obtain property damage claims that are by third parties who damage public property. So somebody hits a street sign or somebody hits a street light, and we don't have currently the available resources to go after those revenue sources. We do believe that we will be able to offset much of this expense through both the subrogation and utilizing the professional services that we currently have.
So How much is the risk, subrogation, and property damage?
We don't know because frankly, we have relied on our third-party administrator to go after those funds, and they have not done so.
So right now, you know, we pay $75,000 for professional services,
Yes,
but you're asking us to fund $397.
that's correct.
So where's the difference?
Again, we don't know exactly what the expectation would be, but we know that, I'll give you an example. Just a single case that we outsource for tort claims is $250,000 in SIR. We are not at present time able to do that in-house because we don't have adequate amount of attorney time. So we're looking at all of these things, both risk function for subrogation, the cost that we're paying in SIRs to third-party attorneys, and for prosecutorial services. It really is going to be kind of a utility position, and that's why we're asking for it at a DCA 1 level.
Any other question? Mr. Escobedo? I'm sorry, were you finished?
Yeah, I was done with that one. Go
You
ahead.
were done. Okay, Mr. Escobedo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So when you first read the report online, when you go through this, it seems that we're putting extra burden on the city, because I mean, one number came up, pop up really. That was the first one I saw. It was the $500,000 for the Recon Parks for water and sewer. So how did that happen? That it just how come today it's brought up to the council? Was that money not being spent before? Was it spent? Where that came from?
I would defer to interim Rec and Park Director Osland, but they're basically out of budget for this current fiscal year for that item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So the cost of water has gone up, and we have a lot of landscaping that takes a lot of water in order to be able to water our ball fields and keep those green. We're trying to mitigate that through our water reduction efforts and also through minimizing our landscaping. So that happens to be a cost that we didn't know in our previous 2-year cycle would look like it is, and so now we're planning for it in our upcoming budget as well.
But my question would be more focused on. So that's money. So before this was brought up, we pay for water, and so we still, we've been paying for water. It just right now it's more on the budget, or how did that happen?
Sure. So when we this year we're planning for a new 2-year cycle in this coming 2 years. And when we forecasted the budget, originally, we didn't anticipate what the combination of state water and so on and so forth would do. So now we're in this, towards the end of this 2-year budget cycle and recovering from some of what those outcomes are.
Okay. So it's basically, if I get it right, we're gonna spend that. We've been spending a ton of money on water because it's expensive, but we're anticipating this for the future 2 years.
Correct.
So, okay.
And at the same time, we're mitigating some of our water use by doing turf removal so that we can, over time, reduce the need.
Yeah, it's not that suddenly we're spending another $500,000 on top of what we've been spending on water, right? Okay. And yeah, thank you.
Mr. Cordero, did you have any questions? Do you have any more questions?
Yes, I do have a question about the 240 offset by the Chamber of Commerce contract reduction. What would we do with that? What does that mean?
Well, tonight, Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez. So the proposal tonight is that you approve bringing economic development services in-house by creating the position. That position would be requested for funding in the budget that you'll be seeing later on in the next couple of months, and we'll be using that revenue or the lack of spending that money with a chamber contract to fund the new position in-house.
Okay. And then the confidential technicians 1 and 2, as well as the business program leader, those would also go to the city manager's office?
They are located in different sections of the city manager's office, including human resources. Those are where those positions are located now, and they'll simply stay in those positions and come off of ARPA funding and become general fund funded.
So these positions already exist?
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Escobedo?
So this means that then, so what I'm trying to see, so because they're already there, these positions, now what would be added to the expenditures of the city? Would that be the water and what else?
So I'm sorry, the question is about these positions or the overall?
Yeah,
expense?
the overall, I mean, in the whole number that we're talking about, I see that the increase will be for the $500,000 for water,
Yes.
plus the $325,000 approximately for firefighters. That would be on top of.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you look at the chart that's up right now that Interim Finance Director Bradford has put up, it is the column, I guess that would be number 2 column, 2324. That 1.185 million would be the cost to close out the fiscal year. And then the ongoing analyzed expense for the new budget, the projection would be that 4.266. Those numbers will be numbers that come to you in the budget, and staff will be working on those numbers. May not actually end up being that number. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less. But the focus is today to give you kind of an idea of what worst case scenario, I guess, if we move forward with those, that would be the additional cost of the general fund. It's probably important to note too that even at the 4.2 million, you're really talking a small percentage of the city's $260 million, more or less, general fund budget.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cordero?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the attempt to transfer the economic development from its current position with the chamber to work in-house with the city, so you would start that at the new budget? Is that
Correct.
The anticipation?
Yes, it would be an element in the budget that you've authorized the position, and then hopefully we'll propose it in the budget, and then you'll authorize the funding to come from that current dollars that we're spending at the chamber.
I only assume that the chamber's aware of this.
Yes.
They are aware?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other questions?
Oh, wait, just
Mr.
again.
Cordero, go ahead.
So, I'm sorry, the cost savings that we will not be paying to the chamber, you're anticipating that will be more or less a push to paying it internally. Is that about right, or?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hernandez?
Yeah,
Yes.
you said that the chamber is aware of this and they agreed to this? Well,
We did meet with the president, CEO of the chamber, myself, and interim assistant director, city manager Wu, and we talked to him about the proposal and made him aware that their contract expires in June, so that we would not be renewing that contract.
Okay.
Any other questions? Oh, Mr. Escobedo?
Well, maybe it's going to further discussion. So no more questions. Just
No,
gonna be
just
a comment.
questions, yeah. Just questions right now.
So I do have a question.
Sure.
So this is an amendment to the budget. So if we approve it today, the money starts being spent tomorrow.
Correct.
The reason why I guess I'll wait till comment.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have any correspondence or requests to speak?
We have one.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Armenta?
getting juicy. Yeah, this is getting real good. It's been a long time overdue, and I would say, as for the city attorney, we don't need to get another deputy city attorney. Just have him do more work. And if he can't handle the job, we'll get another attorney who can do it. Regarding the city manager's office, no, regarding the $500,000 in water fees or the extra costs, I can't believe that you council members weren't aware of it. Your Parks and Recreation director is sitting right there, your interim city manager. You mean he never informed you? You mean he never told you about the $500,000, the crisis that the Parks and Recreation was in regarding the water? This is a prime example of why we, the people at home right now, we look at you, and this is why we feel what we feel toward you elected officials. This is why we see the city manager wants to fill in. No, I'll give it to Mr. Posada. At least he's put in an effort to get rid of the Economic Development Association. And regarding the chamber, if they're okay with it or not is irrelevant. If they don't like it, my position is so what? Plain and simple. It sounds pretty blunt and just straightforward, but that's what we need here. And Madam Chair, I assure you, my mission here is to fill these chambers, to get it like it used to be. Bring them all in so we can see, and now we'll get these chambers going, and we'll have all-night meetings like it used to be. We're not talking 8, 9 o'clock. No, we're talking all the way midnight. But regarding the budget, Mr. Posada is responsible at the end of the day. He's our interim city manager. Whatever goes right, he gets it. Whatever goes wrong, he gets it. He's the one in charge now of the way this city is going. Thank you.
Okay, I will bring this back to council for any discussions or any more questions. And I really did have a question on the chamber and that. And I guess I'm not really sure what our expectations are going to be, what the job is going to be like. And I would be very comfortable pulling that off of this for this evening. But I don't know how anyone else feels.
I'm having a difficult time with the 3 positions of the ARPA funding because that was meant to be temporary money, and the fact that we now want the city to take that big responsibility towards $690,000, I'm having heartburn over that because we saw that money come in and it was supposed to be temporary. And so I'm having a hard time, accepting those positions to the city until, I would want more, analysis as to, if we missed those positions in the budget last time as well. So because it is kind of in the middle of it, you're asking for a huge amendment of $690,000. I'm having a really difficult time to pay those positions with tax money when they were paid with ARPA funds.
Were those positions open at one time and then we filled them with ARPA money?
Let me start and go back a little bit. And
sure.
that is, so when the city received the ARPA funding, the way that I understand that it worked was we identified those positions that had been either requested in past budgets and were not approved, or were positions that the departments identified as being critical to their operation. And so that ARPA money was used to bring those people on board. And as Councilmember Aguilar Hernandez says, they were limited term, 2 years expiration. I think what we've learned over time has been that those positions provide a critical function in the department that they're in. And if there's an opportunity to bring those positions in-house, that's what we're looking at. Perhaps, so the ARPA money doesn't end until June. If it's something that the council would like to do, is we can certainly put those positions in our budget request for next year, which they'll be in there as authorized positions. We can certainly look at that and provide that additional analysis that Councilmember Aguilar Hernandez is asking for.
Thank you. Ms. Soto, I forget that you're not here. Any questions from you?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had the same concern as Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez. To the point that Interim City Manager Posada just made, how will that impact the finance department if we don't fill those positions?
I'll let the directors speak for themselves, but I think that these are positions that were needed before, and we weren't able to fund them in the budget. So ARPA helped fill that gap. Now we're back saying we still need those positions. In case of finance, and finance director can correct me, is these positions will also help us move forward in the development of the ERP program, the new software that the city is moving to. But I'll let her comment on the positions in finance, and then perhaps Don Jackson from Human Resources can talk about her positions.
Thank you. Ms. Bradford?
So
Go ahead.
thank you, Mayor. The two positions for finance are two payroll clerk positions. So we only have 4 people in finance, and due to the limitations of the current technology that we use within finance, which is planned to be moved forward and replaced with a much more efficient modern tool of the ERP, which will be coming forth to you at the next council agenda. These 2 positions are really needed in order to be able to appropriately process payroll and pay our employees.
So what are we doing now to pay our employees and all that?
We are using a lot of Excel spreadsheets. The payroll system itself was implemented in '98. It has very limited capabilities. So our time cards are on paper. A lot of the work is done within the departments themselves. Excel is used to transfer that information to finance and then upload it with some manual processes into the financial system. And that takes 4 people to service the entire organization.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Beto?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question. So right now, how many employees are taking care of the payroll in the city of Santa Maria?
There's a total of 4. So there's a payroll manager and then 3 confidential technicians. So without these 2 positions that are currently filled, we would only have 2 people in payroll.
For how many employees?
We have some 700 approximately employees.
Mr. Cordero?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to go back to the economic development issue with the chamber. Are you anticipating folding this into an existing position, or are you anticipating a new position to accommodate that need? As I view that, that's a pretty important position.
Yes.
That can in fact be responsible for the generation of a great deal of money over the long term.
Thank you, Councilmember Cordero.
Yeah.
And Madam Mayor, so the item that you're doing tonight would approve a job description for the position, and that job description would then be the one we use to recruit specifically for the Economic Development Manager, if it's funded in the next budget. The focus would be working with the downtown redevelopment, working on things like the airport-specific plan, working with the aerospace industry to build those relationships. So it's a critical position, very similar to what we talked about in your council goal setting yesterday, of looking at a different way of doing economic development. That was the goal.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Soto, any more questions from you? Ms. Hernandez, any questions from you? Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah,
Motion?
I would like to split this up. I would like us to move forward with the Recreation and Parks request and the Fire General Fund request. But the rest, as I mentioned, I would like to take a further look at because it is creating additional positions at this time. And, like I said, it may be right. However, with the ARPA in particular, I do have a concern there. But I don't want to hold up the other
Okay,
factors.
so you want to just hold up on, I guess, on the ARPA?
Yes.
Okay. And I would like to revisit then the economic director, I guess. That one I'd like.
I would say.
Yes, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, if I may, apologies for the interruption, but I agree with possibly holding off on moving forward with the positions that would be partially funded by ARPA, and I say partially because that only carries us through June. And moving forward with the other ones, I would not be in favor of pausing the economic development manager position, given the direction that the city is moving towards.
I guess I don't understand, so.
Okay, you're not in favor of moving forward on the economic director's position and?
No,
And
I'm in favor of moving forward with the economic
you're in favor,
development
okay.
position, but I'm not in favor of moving forward with the positions that would be partially funded by ARPA. And I say partially because that only carries us through June. So I agree with Councilmember Aguilera and disagree with you.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
So, sorry, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
So,
Mr.
would that be a motion?
Yeah, make a motion.
I know, I don't know if
Well-
Councilmember Aguilera or Councilmember Soto are introducing a motion, so.
Well,
Do you want to introduce the motion?
I guess I have a question for Councilmember Escobedo. Is there anything you want to pull, like the mayor? I guess.
No, I would like, I want, what I hear is that you guys were giving a motion, so I want you guys to.
Okay,
bring the
the
motion,
only
so-
thing I wanted pulled was the economic development director, but you wanted to pull the
The ARPA.
the ARPA-funded positions. And that was 3 of those?
Somebody.
Mr. Cordero?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just, are we pulling the econ position for additional information and study, or are we pulling it because we don't want it? Is that?
No, I'm pulling it because I would like more information on it. No,
Okay.
I-
So you're not currently opposed to it?
No,
You
I'm not
just-
opposed to it.
You just
No,
want
I just
to-
want more information
More
on it,
information?
right.
Okay. I personally can agree with
Yeah.
that. If you want more information and it gives us and others a better view of where we're going.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you
Mr.
want-
Escobedo, was there any other additional comments?
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Okay.
I move that, I hear you guys. I move that we pull the ARPA, and in this case, put a pause on the economic development position.
Okay.
And yeah, that's.
And approve the rest?
Yeah,
Okay.
approve the rest.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a clarifying
Yes, go
question
ahead,
with
Ms.
that?
Soto.
If we were to not move forward with funding the economic development manager position, how would that impact our budget? Would that increase our budget for the next budget cycle? Given that position essentially is being covered by the Chamber of Commerce?
I think it's I personally think it's an important position. I just want more information on it. I'm not necessarily against it. I just want to see how it's going to impact the city. That's my position. I don't want to wait till June to, if we're going to do it, I don't want to wait till June to do it either, because I would like to be, I'm fine in bringing it back in a couple of weeks. Yeah, I just need more time to look at that.
That's what I recollect, because I do think that we need to look into how this position, it's, as was mentioned by council members, it's crucial for Santa Maria, and more if we're, looking for the future and all the expansion and everything. It's I would like to see how this can fit into the cities. A little bit more information on how this will fall into the cities.
So I do have
umbrella.
a question.
Go ahead, Mrs. Hernandez.
Yeah, and before we get too disjointed, I guess we didn't have time to ask the city manager about this before the meeting. Is it best to just continue at another meeting to give us time to have the discussions, the whole thing, so that it's easier? Or was it easier for us to kind of pick and choose? I feel like we're gonna create issues that way.
Thank you, Councilmember Hernandez. So both the ARP positions, like I said, they're funded through June, so
Right.
you have some cushion of time.
Okay.
The economic development contract goes until June, so you again have some cushion of time. If you want more information, we can do that. You can dissect those out of the finance director's report, and that would be fine. We can bring those back.
Mr. Cordero.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sir, do you anticipate that there is enough time so that there's, importantly to me, would be that there's no interruption in the process, that we can have a, for lack of a better term, a seamless transition, hopefully, depending on which direction we decide to go?
Thank you, Councilmember Cordero. So yes, if we bring the items back, as you're suggesting, Mayor, to the next meeting, we could probably be able to move forward with that. One of the steps that we're going to be working with the chamber on is to create a team of, if the position is approved, of city staff and chamber staff to take what they're working on now and transition it into a plan. Again, you still have to approve the funding for the position in the budget. That
Right.
will come to you at a separate time.
Yes. Okay.
So I guess my question is, so would a month be sufficient to flesh all these issues out? And is that going to delay operations? Two questions.
No.
No.
That's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Escobar?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only one that I actually would like to approve today is the fire and the rec items,
Okay.
because I think those are really crucially important to.
Okay. You want to make a motion for that?
Well, we have a motion, we have a
Yeah.
second.
So.
Wait, no, his motion was different.
I thought you did, okay, we didn't
I'll
have a
drop it
second?
then.
Okay.
I'll drop it.
You withdraw your
Okay,
motion.
withdraw your motion, okay, start all over again.
And so I would like to make a motion to approve the fire and the rec and parks items, and move for next in two weeks, 1 month, and continue on those the rest of the items, the ARPA and the.
1 month.
Or should I make just one motion for one and then jump to that one? I saw that.
Yeah.
So let's make a motion to approve the recommendation for the rec and parks and the fire
Second.
positions.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the Rex and Park and the fire positions. Okay.
Madam Mayor, if I may?
Yes, Mr. Watson.
Just to clarify, you are moving recommendations 1, 2, and 3. Recommendation 2 resolution is amended for those 2 items. That would be your motion.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, also, excuse me,
Yes.
Councilmember Escobedo.
Yes.
So you move to approve just fire and rec and park and all the other requests you would like to
Continue for
continue,
for.
Yeah.
including utilities and the other requests, all those as well? Because there are multiple
Thank you.
departments making
That's-
requests, and so I want to make sure that we're being if we're being specific to capture all of that, if we can amend the motion.
Okay, Mr. Posada?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So there are other requests, including the city attorneys and the utilities department. I think those are important to move forward with, if you could consider those. Utilities in particular, since it's its own fund, it really won't affect the general fund.
So what if I withdraw the motion and we approve?
Okay.
We approve everything except moving for the next meeting the ARPA positions and the economic development position.
That's
That work?
better. That's better.
Perfect.
Do you second that?
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Okay. Madam Clerk, are we okay now? Okay. You can call the roll. Ms. Soto, any discussion?
No, I appreciate the clarification.
Thank you. Okay.
That's why I was asking, would there be operational issues? And I was told no, and then I'm hearing to my right that there will be. So that was why I asked the second question.
Okay. Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
I will say that all of this will be reflected in the minutes so that we have all the information in there. Okay. Councilmember Escobedo.
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez.
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Soto.
Aye.
Mayor Patino.
Aye. Next item will be a report by Interim City Manager Posada.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. I appreciate your deliberation on that last item. Coming up in March 5th, we'll have another closed session scheduled on our labor and city manager recruitment. I'll have a couple of proclamations, one on Arbor Week. The Santa Maria Regional Transit Plan will be on your consent calendar. Some large vehicle parking restrictions on Grant Street and no stopping zones on Southside Parkway. Under regular business, you'll have technical amendments to the municipal code that's being prepared by the city attorney's office. Finance will be presenting the ERP and staffing plan that interim finance director mentioned in her report. Interim Rec and Parks Director will be presenting the park assessment that recently went to the Recreation and Parks Commission. There's a general plan and zone change for the Holiday Inn Express, and an update to the ADU ordinance time extensions and permit relocations. So the March 5th agenda is going to be pretty busy. If you would like to, we can bring back the item we talked about to that agenda, or we can bring it to the March 19th agenda. That's a little bit lighter.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll hear from reports from council members. Mr. Cordero, let's start with you.
Yes, Madam Mayor. On the February the 9th, by the Zoom system, I attended the elected leaders on homeless issue. On the 10th, I attended the 211 presentation by Communify that was held at Menominee Center. It was overwhelmingly supported by the community. It was just packed. There was hundreds and hundreds of people there learning about 911 and what they could do. And I think that they did a great job of showing themselves off as to what they do with 211. I can't help but comment again on 211 that there were thousands of calls made last year. And by the way, most of the calls made to 211 in the county were made here in Santa Maria. And not all of them, but a fair, measurable number of them would have gone probably to the police department. So 211 has an ability to relieve some of the pressure for our Santa Maria Police Department and the fire department. On the 13th, I attended the Solomon Hill meeting here, the presentation on by the developer. I have to say that I was very impressed by the developer. I was anticipating a different kind of presentation. I remain a bit skeptical of it, and You and I were in that meeting together. And, but it's something that is certainly worthy of further consideration by us, even though this project is out in the county. There are ties between the county and the city that necessitate us talking with them a little bit more, in a little bit more detail. On the 15th, I went to the Employees Awards dedication dinner at Vets Memorial. That was very well attended also, and I thought we did our staff did a great job and was helped a lot by the Kiwanis Club to properly recognize our employees. And yesterday, it was an all-day session, again, at the Minami Center for goal setting, and that will probably be coming to the public's view in the not-too-distant future. It was that we got a lot of things out of the way, and I have to say that personally, I enjoyed it with the togetherness, the in-person opportunity to meet with our department heads, and some of them, we know who they are and what their names are, but we don't know them. And just spending those few hours with them helps us to relate to them, helps me to relate to them a little bit better. And I thought that was a very good meeting, a very productive meeting also. And that would be it for me, other than all of my medical appointments.
Mr. Escobedo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the 15th, I attended the Employee Awards dinner. And on Monday, the 19th, I attended also the City Council goal setting meeting. And that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Hernandez.
Attended the fire engine dedication today. Yesterday was the retreat. I attended the employee awards on the 15th. I attended the Marion Community Board of Directors on the 14th and the quarterly investment committee meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Soto?
On Wednesday, February 7th, I did the Van Hayes show, and I want to say that's all I have for reportable items.
Thank you. I'm going to skip that because I didn't bring my calendar with me tonight. So there. Anyway, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Likewise.